have you guys updated your evaluation policies and procedures? Are you in compliance with ASC 820? Stuff like that. This further adds another additional layer of controls over our already robust evaluation policies and procedures. Key operational staff changes. Has the CFO left? Has the COO left? Document request would be the last area that we're going to cover in here. Here's just an example of some potential documents. Current list of firm affiliates. SAA E16 when applicable. You know, there are other documents that can be added into that, but those are the ones that we've initially thought of. So, and every department will be assigned a responsibility that will ensure, you know, I mentioned the first PowerPoint page, that policies and procedures will be drafted around not only the SMA compliance, but also the external manager compliance questionnaire. When they're going to be sent out, who's going to review them, how is it going to be reported to the investment commission or the internal investment committee. So. Any input, questions, thoughts, feedback? Because I think come our next meeting time, these will be drafted and be ready to be sent out. So doesn't mean you can't give input down the road.
Yeah, I think just this kind of one thought that popped in my head, kind of questions related to firm affiliates. I think you want to broaden that language, right? I mean, one of the things regulators are trying to go back to the people, right? So you can have firms that aren't affiliated, but they're affiliated through persons,
yeah,
right? So to make sure you get that covered.
Yeah.
At some point, would this same type of information be sought from, not just from managers, but from providers, service providers?
Yeah, in the operational due diligence presentation, we'll go into the detail on the service provider oversight. So. Next. Topic on the agenda is the review of the risk assessment dashboard. I think everyone's pretty familiar with this as we've covered it, every meeting. But I think, as we've noted in previous meetings, we continue to make significant progress. If everybody was to look at the dashboard summary, which we've added dates of when the tasks have been completed, which I think is really helpful, actually. I think it gives an amazing timeline of what has been accomplished over the last year. So I will just highlight some of the recent accomplishments since our last audit committee meeting, and if anyone has any specific questions, I'm obviously happy to answer them. The most recent task completed is the operation due diligence program has been developed. We're going to go into much more detail. I think that's actually our next agenda item, so I'll leave that up to the presentation to go into that detail. We also have developed a formal succession plan, which was part of the governance policies that were approved in March. Now I'll focus on some of the tasks in progress. I think underneath some of these tasks we've made some progress. So the task itself is not completed. We're making those steps to get to the end goal. Just to, again, highlight, I think two of the highest priority tasks, develop operational infrastructure and fully develop risk management, are heavily reliant on us receiving additional funding. You know, to develop operational infrastructure, we've requested a budget of 1.8 million for needed technology. And for risk management function, we've asked for a budget authorization of 300,000. You know, the team is doing as much as possible without that technology, but obviously there's some things that you can just not progress without the right technology in-house. Some other recent tasks that we've completed to highlight is under document all policies and procedures, as I noted earlier, working jointly with PIVA, we finalized evaluation policies and procedures in March, which we've sent out to all the commissioners. Also, we revised the governance policies, which was approved by the commission in March also. And there's, within the packet, it's the Excel spreadsheet, which goes into much greater detail. So I just covered the high levels. Any specific questions on that?
This is just more detail.
That's some more detail, yeah. It rolls up into this one page here. So yeah, within the compliance function, you know, we noted the compliance framework, which we discussed at last audit committee, and the next step is formalized procedures around compliance monitoring, which is something that we just discussed.
And under the task still in progress, I noticed that, I was trying to, what prompts this question is I was looking to see what's the latest going on here, but I noticed we don't have anticipated completion dates for all of them. Well, is that because
I
it's not
think,
anticipatable? Or
well, I think some of them are highly contingent on us receiving the funding. So to fully complete the task, the funding, you know, is necessary, so. But we can work on the ones that don't require funding, I can add to it an anticipated completion date, so.
What if you don't get the funding? Is there some other way to approach the problem or the task?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think, you know, from my understanding, that the team's working on this, they're doing the best they possibly can, but, I mean, how do you develop operational infrastructure without a budget for IT? How do you develop a risk management system for a $20 billion alternative, you know, pension plan in multiple asset classes without a risk system? I mean, you can't manage that on Excel. It's just impossible. I mean, they're doing as best as possible, but to fully complete it, to be fully institutionalized and, you know, like we're aiming to be, we need that funding, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, you know, I do think that there is some room in the current budget to do projects right now, and that, you know, we're in the handoff stage between Gary and I on that, but there is some room. For example, private eye, I believe that we have the funding right now to do private eye as a system, which is a critical system that we need. So we can do some work around the margins.
Anything else otherwise? Handout, Sarah, and this is a follow-up presentation that was requested by Mr. Gillespie in regards to the presentation that we gave at last audit committee regarding operational risk. And Mrs. Corbett will address how our new operations building program is going to address that operational risk that was discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Chernick. This is a follow-up. We've been talking about operational due diligence for a while. The audit committee did hear a presentation from the team in February. As well, the Deloitte report indicated that a best practice would be for us to have an operational due diligence resource. And just very big picture, I would like to remind you that we have taken several steps. My allocation to this project and my dedication to it is the most recent step that we have taken, but also in the RFP that we did with the investment consultants that was culminated in a contract last October, we made sure to put operational due diligence in their scope of work. And they are doing operational due diligence for us both for new investments and for ongoing investments. as well, the due diligence guidelines that were adopted, both the initial due diligence guidelines and the ongoing due diligence guidelines that are in place right now, have the investment team covering operational areas. So while my addition to the investment team has been new, we have been working and trying to get at this issue and make sure that we have ample coverage of operational due diligence for a period of time. So I want to make sure that we are clear about this. My addition to the staff has really just been the most recent thing that we have done for operational due diligence. Of course, due diligence is composed of operational due diligence as well as investment due diligence. So I know that's a basic point, but one that I thought we'd start with. This is a repeat of some of what you saw last time from Mr. Chernick's presentation. Operational risk can be identified as the risk of loss resulting from inadequate or failed internal processes, people and systems, or external events. Or it could be simply an non-investment related risk. As well, I put some documentation in here from Hewitt because I thought that their write-up was good about operational due diligence is an assessment of the potential risks associated with the way in which a manager operates. And it's separate from the skill or potential value that a manager might generate from investment decisions. And that is why I think we got the original recommendation from Deloitte & Touche to dedicate operational staff to look at investment managers, because you're going to look at it with a different eye, a different background, and that's what we've done. The goals of the operational due diligence program here at the Retirement Systems Investment Commission are to identify and independently assess operational risk within the investment program and have that factored into the investment decisions that we make. I did want to state that in the internal investment committee, I will have a pass-fail option for new investments. So that will add to the independence of the function. So if the investment team wants to move forward with something, if I, from an operational perspective, am not comfortable with that, I will have the ability to do a failed decision on that. I do expect to work collaboratively with the investment staff, so I doubt that we would get to the point where we're considering an investment in the final stages and I would give them a surprise. I would communicate that earlier on, but I did want to note that. I think that's important from an independence perspective. And then, of course, I definitely want this to be a value-added proposition. I don't want it to be a check-the-box exercise. I want to add value to the portfolio by providing the independent layer of diligence, and I want to support the broad goals of the commission that are outlined in the documents that we have. I'm going to accomplish this goal in several ways. Of course, I'll review manager materials, do phone or on-site meetings with managers. I'll work collaboratively with the investment consultants. HEK is going to be doing their review as well. I won't do that in isolation. I will be in communication with them. And I will also strategically utilize our investment partners. So one of the things we're going to talk about as we go through here is, we do have fund-to-funds exposure. I'm going to lean on those fund-to-funds for training, for questions when I have it, when I need to reach out to them and there's some specific area of expertise that I'd like more clarification on. I want to be able to call on them. But as well, I want to understand what each of our investment partners are doing on our behalf. And we'll talk about this when we get into the strategic partnership review. But I want to make a decision about which strategic partners or which funds am I comfortable with the level of operational due diligence that they are doing for us versus which partners do I think I need to get a little bit more involved in. And that'll be part of the exercise that I go through for fiscal year 14. The coverage areas, new investments, and this is just kind of my thinking of how I am dividing up the program, how I want to allocate my time, my recommendations. So these are the 4 categories that I've come up with: new investments, strategic partnerships, existing investments, and service providers. Again, I just wanted to mention that HEK is contractually required to perform operational due diligence on our behalf, so I will be working with them. And the investment staff will continue to review audited financial statements that are coming in from our investment managers. As well, PIVA is going to be reviewing audited financial statements that are coming in from our investment managers. So we're trying to make sure that we have adequate coverage and that we have multiple controls. And I wanted to say in this, in priority order, the most time, attention, and resources will be given to hedge funds, then private market investments, and then traditional investments. Okay? The reason for this is that generally traditional investments are transparent, they're valued on public exchanges, they're highly regulated, and have a lower and more easily calculated fee structure. So they're simpler.
If I can just make one comment, just because I
Sure.
think it's, I see this a lot, right? The highly regulated hedge funds and private market investments absolutely are highly regulated. I think that's a common misperception, right, that is not an accurate statement.
Very good point and very well taken. From HEK, again, I tried to pull from them that operational due diligence evaluations are usually more involved where in strategies where assets are more frequently traded. They're invested through limited partnerships, involve a lockup of assets, involve illiquid or difficult to value securities. Those would be the level 3 assets with smaller new managers, or where derivatives and leverage are used extensively. Coverage levels for new investments. So how I envision this program working is that I will become most involved in new investments. I have developed a DDQ for private market investments. I will develop one for hedge funds as well. However, I don't anticipate that we are going to be doing a lot of new hedge fund investments given the asset allocation that we adopted. I expect the activity to be more heavy in private market structures, so I've spent more time with private market structures thus far. I also think the DDQ will allow me to be relatively efficient in collecting the information that I need to review. I will be trying to keep up with the whole investment team, so I think I need to be efficient in what I'm doing. And then I just wanted to show you the areas that in fiscal year 14 that I will be responsible for in the initial due diligence recommendation that comes to the commission. So those are the areas: back office staffing and systems, legal and compliance, infrastructure, that's really IT infrastructure, transparency and reporting, insurance coverage, service providers, trade life cycle process, valuation policies and procedures, cash management, and counterparty risk management. Again, I will work collaboratively with the investment team and HEK. Strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships are contractually required to perform work on our behalf. And they constitute a large portion of our portfolio. We're all aware of that. So I want to make sure to spend time in strategic partnerships this year. So as far as our existing investments, I am going to focus my time on strategic partnerships to begin with for the coming fiscal year. I will make sure to pay attention to the level of operational due diligence that they perform on our behalf. For example, we've got a couple partners that I've already done a review on that are performing robust procedures on our behalf. I've documented that and I'm comfortable with what they're doing. I will also be sure to review the valuation procedures that they perform for the partnership and make sure that I'm comfortable with that, and make sure that I'm comfortable with ASC 820. Existing investments. Now, Mr. Turnick talked about this. We are incorporating operational due diligence questions into the compliance questionnaire. We are trying to flag any risk areas, any major changes in service providers. That would be a change in prime broker, change in administrator, change in auditor, things like that. Major changes in staff, changes in CFOs, COOs, CCOs. Just trying to flag where we might want to ask more questions. rather than trying to develop a program where we have coverage over everything. We're trying to do it risk-based, and this is one of the ways that we will try to gather that information so that we can make that risk-based decision. And just to mention again, I know I mentioned this earlier, the investment team will continue to complete the audited financial statement reviews. They're going to continue to do semi-annual reviews, and those cover operational areas. So they will be asking as well, has your service provider changed? Has your auditor changed? So again, we're trying to get at these issues in multiple ways and have first level controls and second level controls. And then, if the investment staff flags an issue that is important, if it's operationally related, of course, they can come to me and I will try my best to help them investigate that issue. Also, just to note, Hewitt and his Knupp will be conducting annual questionnaires as part of their operational due diligence review as well. Service providers. I wanted to mention, I am not planning in the first year to do on-site service provider reviews. And that would, mainly when I think about that, that's key service providers. And I'm thinking mainly about administrators in that regard. So what I intend to do is I will either confirm key service provider relationships or Hewitt and Knupp will. I'll make sure that that's done, but I'm not necessarily planning to go on-site at service providers in the first year. I will if I can fit it in, I will if it's necessary, but that's something that I was really looking to the second year of the program to do. And of course, if we get additional resources, that's something that we could do. And in really robust operational due diligence programs, that is done. Resources. So I've talked before about how I'm going to collaborate with others. It's going to be me and hopefully at least one temporary resource, or at least a portion of a temporary resource. But I do believe that may depend on the budget situation. I believe our personal services budget is potentially getting very tight. So that may be something that we will have to consider if we don't receive additional resources. And timing. So again, I want to be as efficient as possible. I want to be introduced to an investment when the investment team is reasonably confident that they're going to proceed forward with an investment. I don't want to be involved in the idea generation stage because I don't want to waste my time looking and doing an evaluation on an investment that doesn't really come to fruition. On the other hand, I need to get involved early enough in the pipeline so that I can do an adequate review. I don't want to be, of course, not just at the end and trying to do a quick review. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, great. Thank you for your time.
The next item on the agenda is executive session to discuss investment matters and personnel matters. Do we have a motion?
I move to go into executive session for those purposes.
All in favor? And for the first part of this, just as he was involved in the matter, I'd like to ask Mr. Oliver to stay. There are no objections.